Hello again, this is Alan Macon, the local history tutor from Knowsley Face, with a continuing series of short videos on the local history of Knowsley and Liverpool down the ages. Today's short video is entitled Liverpool and Everton Football Grounds History, which will be a short video looking at some maps, original photographs of the developments of Anfield football ground and Goodison football ground from the late Victorian period into the modern 21st century. We'll look at how the football clubs were formed and how the football grounds grew over many decades. I'd also like to mention at this point, Knowsley Face is running a free 8-week Zoom session family history genealogy course. If anyone's interested, like to enroll on the course, the free 8-week course, please look at the Knowsley Face website for further details on this course being offered by Knowsley Face. So firstly, I'd like to look at a map of the Anfield area in 1884, which says there's a map of Anfield when it opened in 1884 and was the home at that point of Everton Football Club. So if I just zoom in, hopefully you can get an idea of how Anfield, the football ground, was originally Everton Football Club. Quite clearly says that, but eventually became Anfield and Liverpool, the home of Liverpool Football Club. So this is the map from the late Victorian period. All the surrounding small streets, a lot of them are still there, a lot have disappeared over the years. Famous Kemlyn Road is mentioned, which has disappeared, and the relatively small ground back in the Victorian period. So if we zoom out again to continue with the history of Liverpool Football Club. So Everton Football Club itself, the older club, was founded way back in 1878 and had its first game in Stanley Park between the two football grounds, then moved to Anfield in 1884 until 1891. A year later, Liverpool moved into the grounds and was formed. The birth certificate of Liverpool's football ground can be traced to 1892 in this document I'm going to show you. So I've zoomed in. So certificate change of name from Everton Football Club to Liverpool Football Club and Athletic Ground back in 1892. Beginnings of Liverpool Football Club, 1892, you might say it's birth certificate. Liverpool Football Club itself was formed, as I just said, in 1892. When a Mr. John Holding had a row with Everton over rent, and this led to Everton leaving Anfield and the formation of the Liverpool Football Club. So Mr. Holding, John Holding, he at the Anfield, on the Anfield ground stadium, the Cop End, not far from there is a small road or avenue called Holding Road, which commemorates the name of John Holding, the founder of Liverpool Football Club. You can imagine Anfield, like Goodison, changed greatly over the decades, and by the 1950s, Liverpool had become a huge ground. The record attendance at Anfield was set in 1952, when Liverpool played Wolverhampton Wanderers with an attendance of 61,905 people. Rather strangely, it wasn't against Everton, but it was against Wolves, who were a very famous team in the 1950s. Nextly, I want to show you two photographs of the most famous part of Anfield football ground, the Spine Kop. And the people who were on it, known as the Kopites, arguably the most famous supporters in the world. The new Spine Kop, the top photograph dates from 1906. The bottom one is the Spine Kop with a new roof in 1928, when its capacity was a huge 28,000 people. So I'll quickly zoom in. So this is the early Kop, just a giant ash embankment at one end of the ground, open to the weather, but eventually they decided to put a roof on it with a capacity of 28,000, making it one of the biggest terraces in the whole of the country. To continue the theme of Liverpool Football Club and the Spine Kop. So the Spine Kop, the actual rather strange name, is Afrikaans, which is basically South African Dutch, and then translates as Spy Hill, referring to a battle in the Boer War in 1900. The Boer War was famous because of a Lancashire regiment with Liverpool soldiers in it, and they fought on this hill in South Africa in the Boer War, and this particular hill was known as a Spy Hill. Lots of local soldiers were killed, and this led to being christened the Spine Cop a few years later by Liverpool Echo journalist Ernest Edward in 1906. Other parts of the ground would also develop. The new Kenmare Road stand dates from 1963. That changed again, and that's now the Sir Kenny Dalglish stand, and also the modern development of Liverpool in the last 5 or 6 years. So quickly show you the old Kenmare Road stand, which was redeveloped into the Centenary stand, which again was now renamed the Sir Kenny Dalglish stand. This is modern day Anfield with a capacity of 54,000 people. Then we come to the famous Goodison Park, the oldest football team in Liverpool, and the first thing we'll look at is the first known sketch or image of Goodison Park appeared in the Liverpool Echo way back in 1892. The club started out as St Domingo Football Club in 1878. Everton's groundbreaking development at Mere Green in 1892 saw the building of Goodison Park. The first game saw them beat Bolton 4-2. The reference to Mere Green, the site of Goodison Park, and Mere is basically a waterlogged or boggy ground, so that's how Goodison Park started out as the site of Goodison Park. So again, I will quickly zoom in to show you the first image of Goodison Park with a few thousand capacity. And the first known photograph from the local press of Goodison Park in the early 1900s. So a very small stadium. Everton and Liverpool would become famous great football clubs, winning many honours. This led to the development of both grounds in terms of capacity. One of the major developments of Goodison was one of the biggest stands still at Goodison today, and the most famous part of their ground. At Anfield it's known as the Cop, and at Goodison it's known as the Gladys Street end, where the most, you might say, fervent supporters are gathered either the Cop end or in this case the Gladys Street end. So the first photograph was taken from 1969, and I'll just zoom in to show you. So this is the old, what was then the old stand became the new stand. It's getting an idea of a U stand with the famous St Luke's Church in the foreground. Sorry, the background still there today. The bottom one is the famous Gladys Street end, with the Evertonians celebrating probably a goal or a win. So that gives you an idea of the development of Goodison Park over the decades. Continuing that theme, we have Goodison Park in 1938, again as I mentioned before, with the famous St Luke's Church in the corner. So it's surrounded by Stanley Park at the top, surrounded by housing, a lot of it's still there today. So Goodison Park, as I've already mentioned, would change greatly over the years. Its record attendance came against Liverpool in the local derby in 1948 when 78,000 supporters were recorded at Goodison. Goodison was the first ground to install underground heating back in 1958, costing £16,000. The old main stand, which I showed you the photograph before, originally cost £28,000, a lot of money back in 1908, but many decades later the new stand, which is still there today, cost an estimated £500,000 back in 1971. Lastly, I'd like to talk about Everton's future. So this is a nice photograph of the proposed Bramley Moor dock at Goodison Park with a capacity of around 52,000 supporters, estimated to cost somewhere around £400 million. So this is the new proposed Bramley Moor Stadium, the home of Everton Football Club for the next in the next few years. The new ground will hold something like 52,000 spectators. The present Goodison holds about 40,000. So just, as usual, just like to finish off by saying, if you wish to make any comments, please do. Please stay tuned into the Knowsley website, Knowsley Face and Knowsley Recovery for tips on mental health and well-being. And please, if you're interested in joining a 8-week family history course, genealogy, on Zoom sessions, please contact Knowsley Face website for enrolment details. Thank you.